Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morganoff, Motor City Madmouth, and I am pleased to be joined by my A1 crew. And I mean, my A1 crew is my A1 crew. We'll lead off, since it is the appropriate analogy for baseball, with Rick Curti, Mr. Opinion. Welcome back, Rick.
Thanks, Scott.
And Eric Katz, Mr. Concrete Dump. I'll say I like all these Mr. analogies.
Thank you.
You're welcome. How polite is this guy? And last but not least, L Square Lou Landers. Welcome back, Big Lou.
Thank you. Happy to have all four of us back on a show. It's been a while. Excited to get going.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun with the four of us on here. It probably cost me several hours of sleep later because I know how fun and how good it is. But see, when you get something good, you just want to keep it going. And I'm glad that the four of us have the ability to have a lot of fun talking about, in my opinion, the greatest sport ever known to mankind, baseball. But that said, okay, we're going to lead off. Again, my favorite word, okay, at a game that I attended with Candy Ebeling on Sunday, where Sandy Alcantara threw a complete game Sunday in a 4-3 win versus the Atlanta Braves. There were 3 unearned runs. Sandy threw 115 pitches, 7 strikeouts. Decent crowd, actually, for the Marlins, 17,908. And it was obviously big for Miami because the bullpen had 2 days off, with Monday being an off day, and of course they ended up going to Tampa. So I guess it's only fitting that when I talk about episode titles, appreciating a complete game centers around Sandy Alcantara. And you know what? I'm going to tell you right now, I grew up back in the 70s and 80s where there are a lot of them. I still feel like we miss a lot of them these days, and it's a shame that we don't see a lot more. Rick, I think you could appreciate the complete game, can't you? What are your thoughts, first of all, what Sandy accomplished down in Miami?
I miss a complete game. The art of pitching is gone. Everybody wants to throw 100 miles an hour and set all these records of the, fastest fastball in the world and be on social media with it. And that art has gone, that everybody wants to be a flamethrower. Analytics has come in, and now it's like, well, you can pitch 5 or 6 innings because, the third time around they're going to hit you. So we got to take you out. So we don't see that anymore. That art is gone, unfortunately. It's a new generation now. Now it's all a lot of analytics, a lot of science, a lot of this, a lot of that. I think we overanalyze things way too much in our, not only in baseball but in our society. And it's I mean, like I said, the greatest pitcher I ever saw was Greg Maddux. He was a true artist on the mound. Complete games, 90 pitches, 2.5-hour games. It was art to watch that. And that, unfortunately, is gone. We might see it once in a blue moon, but highly unlikely we'll ever see something like that. So the art of complete games, just like stolen bases, unfortunately, is diminished.
I think the one guy, too, that I should point out in this era, Roy Halladay used to throw a fair amount of them compared to today's standards. And, it was always refreshing to see Roy Halladay throw a lot of them with the Blue Jays and the Phillies. So with that said, Lou, obviously, Sandy, I should point out one other thing, too. I'll never forget one of my best memories, the first no-hitter that I ever saw, which will actually segue into what Lou's going to talk about in a moment, was when we saw Henderson Alvarez throw a no-hitter, the Marlins or the Tigers. But let's stay on point here with the complete games. Lou, they're amazing when they happen, aren't they?
They certainly are. And I just wanted to look up the exact number that Roy Halladay threw in his career. 67 of them.
Wow.
Yeah. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years he led all of baseball in them. And he had 2008, 2009, 2010, each year, 9 complete games. Some guys don't even win 9 games in a season, especially now. So, yeah, I'm glad you brought him up. Such a tragic thing that did happen to him with that plane crash. But over to more positive things. With the Sandy Alcantara, I mean, he's been one of those pitchers that's really been on the rise over the years. He heads up that Marlins staff, a great staff. So it's good to see Mattingly let him go 110, 150 pitches, whatever it was. He really is just a tremendous pitcher, and he has great stuff, and he has that velocity, but he also knows how to pitch. And that's really just a great combination that you don't get to see often anymore, because you do have these guys with the nasty stuff like Sandy Alcantara, but they can't harness it all the time, and they're very erratic and they're very inconsistent. Or you have guys that might throw lower 90s, which is still very quick. It's just not quick by today's standards. And they're more, I guess, pitchers than they are throwers. But Alcantara is kind of a mix of both, and definitely a big fan of his.
Well, I've seen him play a lot, especially the last 2 years. I can tell you one thing about Sandy, Lou, and the rest of you guys, that he can get that strikeout anytime he wants, and that he knows he can do it too. So, and plus, the Marlins did give him a contract extension. I think 4 years, $56 million. So they definitely feel that he's a frontline pitcher, will be the anchor of that staff. And as I mentioned before, you got Sixto Sanchez waiting in the wings, Max Meyer. Pablo Lopez is on the mound tonight. We'll have to see how the rest plays out, but staying on point with Sandy Alcantara, this guy here is a stud. He is. I've seen him a lot. I know what the guy can do. But a sign of a good pitcher is knowing I can get that strikeout anytime I want to get it. And he did. And rare in mind on Sunday, he was a victim of 3 unearned runs. I mean, when Jesus Aguilar dropped that routine foul ball, here he is. He got his glove on, and all of a sudden he didn't have it in there, and he dropped it. So, oh my God, it's just going to be the end of Sandy Alcantara. Please don't. And thankfully, Sandy finished it off, and Don Mattingly kind of knew where he had to be at about $115, and it was good to see a complete game. Eric, some thoughts about Sandy?
I mean, here's a guy he can pitch. He's obviously a terrific thrower, but the thing is, you don't see very often is he knows how to mix the off speeds in there instead of just blowing a ball past them. The guy's can be very finesse. That's what makes him so hard to hit. There's no other pitcher like him. Instead of it's in this league, probably the average pitcher is more. It's either a thrower, like, he can bring heat, or he just is very finesse and very off speed. Sandy has the complete package. You don't see that often. The guy, like, it was refreshing to see a guy can go all 9 and save the bullpen. It was, obviously, Sandy's not one or the other. Sandy's just in the middle, and that's what makes him so good is, he can be with the modern game, yet he rebels against it by getting guys out with off speed.
Yeah, and you know what? That's the thing that gets lost in all of this thing is you go ahead and have a complete game. It saves your bullpen another day or two. I mean, really. And you know what? We talked, Lou, about running up the score last week when we brought it up. Complete games, okay, to me, enable you to extend that bullpen in case you have it, as they say, a rainy day or a bad day. Mm-hmm. And in this case, the Marlins benefited by it by 48 hours because they had an off day, on top of the fact that the bullpen was off on Sunday. So, when you talk about running up scores, you have a tax of bullpen. So, to me, I wish we saw a lot more of it. I really do. I brought up Roy Halliday because he's the closest thing to old school than he was a lot when I grew up. Rick, obviously, you saw a lot of them. And I know, Lou, with your vast knowledge of the game the way it is.
I saw a lot of Halliday because I lived in Toronto while he was pitching in Toronto. Uh-huh. I was still in Toronto when he got signed with the Phillies, right? I don't think he got traded there. He signed with the Phillies, but yeah, right. I remember that first playoff start of his career, no hitter, special pitcher.
The one guy that I saw a lot of complete game wise is Mickey Lolage of the Tigers. He used to rack up a lot of innings, and why he's not in the Hall of Fame to me is anybody's guess. We're not going to get into that tonight. But he definitely was an innings eater through a lot of complete games. And I'm just talking about one guy. We can get in there and do a show on just guys throwing complete games in the 70s and 80s.
Hershiser's another one I can think of.
What's that?
Oral Hershiser.
Well, that's true.
The Bulldog.
Right. So again, that's a future episode talking about guys that threw the most. But right now, for what we're talking about tonight with Sandy and Roy Halliday, it's just amazing how much the art and the appreciating the complete game is missed in this day and age because of what baseball has become. So, anybody else have any closing thoughts on it before I turn?
Yeah, I want to ask you guys how many complete games you think Cy Young had.
He probably completed every game he ever pitched in because that's what you did at the time.
I'm gonna take a wild guess about 400 or 500 games.
Think a lot more than that, Rick.
Really?
You have a guess?
I'm going to say like 800.
A little less. Eric?
Probably about 750.
Well, I made it easier for you, but yeah, you nailed it. 749 complete games.
Well, you said a little less.
749.
I'm the low one on the totem pole. At least you got the computer to look it up. I'm looking at
I
you
thought
guys.
it'd be in the
I didn't
thousands.
even look at the computer. I didn't even look.
Walter
at the computer.
Johnson had 531. Pud Galvin, never heard of him.
Yeah, that's a dead ball
646.
era. Yeah.
Tim Keefe, Kid Nichols.
Yeah.
Those are definitely dead ball names.
Dead
Pud,
ball.
700.
Love the dead ball era.
Yeah.
That is surreal.
Christy Mathewson at 435.
I think he's the greatest pitcher of all time, Christy Mathewson, aside from Cy Young.
Robin Roberts, 305. Gaylord Perry, 303.
Yeah.
Lefty
Gaylord.
Grove, 298.
Gaylord Perry cheated.
So, yeah, those are just some
Mr.
of the
Spitball. Yeah.
Wow.
those
And
are
he
just some
doctored
of the
the ball.
names I got there. But yeah, we're speaking about these types of big games, complete games. Well, going complete game is impressive. Going complete game with no hits is even more impressive.
Great.
And-
So
Love it.
Okay, now that you brought it up, Lou, take over. I know where you're going.
Yeah, so
What- the GMTA theory, right, Lou? What is
yeah,
it?
great minds think alike. You stumped me on that show we did on, I think it was last Thursday, but I did figure it out before you were able to tell me. So yeah, we're talking some no hitters tonight, and kind of because last week, Scott, Rick, and I were talking a little bit, and no hitter came up. I don't even remember why it came up, and Scott was on the side of he doesn't like the no hitters, doesn't consider it a no hitter when multiple guys pick up that no-hitter. And Scott, if I'm quoting you wrong, correct me.
No, you're right. What are you talking
Okay.
about? You know exactly.
Okay.
don't think
I
it's
just want to
no
make sure.
hit
When I'm quoting someone, I want to make sure I have it right. So that's
come
how
on, you
Scott
know better
believes.
than that. Wait, hold
That's
on.
what Scott thinks.
Yeah, I know. Come on, don't even go there. You know darn well that I have issues with combined no hitters. You can give me all this journalism. Let's quote the guy right. Come on, GMTA is my quote. I don't believe a combined no hitter is a real legitimate no hitter. Let me ask you a question, Lou. Okay, when you have a combined no hitter, who gets credit for it? You're an analyst.
The franchise, the organization.
Yeah, but what pitcher?
All of them.
Well, okay, so you're going to sit here and tell me this guy has a no hitter?
Yeah, they all combined for a no-hitter. And it could be the 7th in team history or the 14th in team history.
Well,
or whatever
that
it
part
is.
I can understand. It'll be X amount in team history. I want to know who actually gets credit for the no hitter.
Just the team.
Okay, that's my point. So yeah, so then what you've done is you've made my point for me. Okay, thank you, Lou.
Well,
I don't believe...
and that's where I beg to differ. But before I really get into it, other than saying I think they're counted the same, no hits is no hits across 9 innings or more. Rick, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Lou. I respectfully disagree with you, Scott. To me, a no-hitter is a no-hitter. I don't care if it's 20, 30, 40, 100 pitchers combined. It's a no-hitter. If you don't allow any hits, it's a no-hitter. Just like a pitcher, if he pitches a no-hitter and loses, like Andy Hawkins when I saw him do that 20-some years ago, it's a no-hitter. So if you allow no hits, it's a no-hitter. It's a combined no-hitter. I am actually more impressed with a combined no-hitter because it's with different pitchers, different styles, and they all get together and they all throw a no-hitter at once. To me, that's more impressive than one person throwing a no-hitter, but that's just my opinion.
Well, you know what? I have no problem with anybody respectfully disagreeing with it. You know that thing called the First Amendment, everybody to free speech, no problem. Yeah. Reality is situation. Yeah, it is a team statistic. But when I talk about no hitter up until many years ago, you know what? The first time I really ever saw a combined no hitter, you ready for this? Is in spring training at Fort Lauderdale Stadium. I think the Yankees threw one. I don't remember the opponent. I think it was actually against the Mets. There was a combined no-hitter, but I don't know. It was at Fort Lauderdale Stadium, and they had a combined no-hitter. But I didn't care about it in spring training because these guys only going 2 or 3 innings apiece anyway. So no big deal.
They're not facing major league caliber.
Well, yeah, so I didn't mind then. But nobody's going to sit here. Yeah, Rick, let everybody disagree with me. Good. I'm glad. I love it that way. No big deal. I don't have an ego bigger than the Titanic for people to disagree with me. But the reality is a combined no-hitter is a team stat, not an individual one, and that's why I don't think combined no hitter.
But it can be considered a team stat even by one pitcher. The guys behind them are still playing defense. A lot of them are making game-saving catches, and so many.
Yeah, no, but wait a minute, wait.
But think about the plays that are made. There's always that one play that's made, whether it's in the first inning or the seventh or the ninth, that is just a stellar defensive play that saves that no-hitter. We see it so often. Is that not a team game?
Well, we know that, but you only have one pitcher, Lou. I know where you're going from.
But it's still a team achievement.
Yeah, but let me ask you a question. Okay, Eric, this one time, Lou and I get to go at it here. So I love it. Like, it's okay to pick different battles in this show. Okay.
I'm waiting for Eric to come in and back me up, and we can form a new alliance.
No, I'm sure you will. That's okay. Bring it on, baby. I don't even care.
Okay. Well,
hold on, Eric. Let me attack this guy first. Okay. I don't care about the stellar play. Okay, behind it saves a no-hitter. That doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is that no-hitter is credited to a particular pitcher. Hashtag particular, although we're probably not gonna, but hashtag it a particular pitcher. I realize that there's that saving play that's going to protect it, and don't think that the pitcher's not giving a fist bump. Way to go, baby. Way to go. It's one thing. But, when I'm talking about legitimacy, I'm talking about the amount of pitchers in there.
Yeah. And now I actually do remember why we thought of the no-hitter. Before I go to you, Eric, it was the Reds losing the game with the no-hitter. Yeah. Anything I can do to knock the Reds. But Eric, come on in, man. Should they be counted the same? And are you with Rick and I? Are you with Scott? Or are you kind of in the middle? What's going through your mind here?
To me, a no-hitter is a no-hitter. I'd probably say combined no-hitters are more impressive because every pitcher's different. And, one guy.
Doesn't that depend a little bit, though? Like 2 guys versus 5 guys. 5 guys is crazy good, right? Because everyone has to be on. But 2 guys.
Not really. Not as impressive. But a no-hitter is still a no-hitter, though, because the ball is not leaving the plate. Or the ball is not finding the ground. The runner is not getting on base because he hit the ball. It's still that way. I mean, for a perfect game, do we put an asterisk on Mark Burley's perfect game because Dwayne Weiss made that probably one of the most impressive perfect game saving catches I've ever seen? Do we do that? No. Again, especially in this day and age, you're going to see more combined no hitters because pitchers don't go. Pitchers very rarely now will go past 6 innings.
Well, let me tell you this. If this makes you feel any better, Mr. Toronto, okay, I saw a game between the Blue Jays and the Indians at the old Cleveland Municipal Stadium, and Dave Steve had that perfect game going for him and lost it because of a pebble in the dirt where the ball actually hit the rock and went into right field, and I'll never forget it. I've never felt so bad for a guy named Dave Steve. And, he had a lot. And you know what, Mr. Toronto, okay, Dave Steve went out there and had a lot of near misses as well. But that guy was a heck of a pitcher for the Blue Jays. But to lose a no-hitter because the ball hit a rock on the infield, boy, you talk about, I don't know which is worse, Armando Galarraga losing a perfect game.
Galarraga's is worse.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been the first
probably worse
in Tigers history here. Or to see Dave Steve lose a no-hitter because of a stupid rock. I wonder, has anybody grabbed that rock and went out there and wonder if it would be an interesting piece of memorabilia. Although don't tell that to Dave Steve. But Dave Steve was a guy that probably should have had a few more. And if he had anything, it was a little bit of bad luck. But, yeah, the Armando one I think was a bad thing. And the Tigers, what magnified that situation was it would have been the first game in Tigers history, and it never happened. So,
well, yeah, I'd probably say Steve that's just unfortunate. Where unfortunately the ball was just hit so perfectly that it just happened to find a pebble in the infield, and
it just wasn't meant to be for him.
I think he lost 3 no-hitters in the 9th inning, but he did eventually get it. So he did get one.
Yes, he did.
But I wanted to see it, and I didn't see it because of some stupid rock.
Oh, that happens.
I know.
That's life.
I've only seen one no-hitter live, I believe. It was Justin Verlander in Toronto.
Yeah, and the one I saw live was a Henderson Alvarez against the Tigers in the Marlins room. So say what we want about the Marlins, but they do have a few no-hitters in their pocket.
They do.
We could pick on my Marlins. Yes, I'm wearing the Marlins hat. Why not? I mean, after all.
Scott, let me ask you this, because we're obviously all on one side versus you on the other side.
Okay.
I know we're not going to change your mind, but do you at least see where we're coming from when there's 4 or 5 or 6 guys all combined for it, how difficult that truly is, because you're really having an entire team be perfect that day or be flawless that day. You know how hard that is for teams to actually do that? Is that not impressive to you, at least, that they can?
Well, I'll say this much, okay, because you're not going to remember. I'm the oldest one here in this panel here, okay. So I've seen the game a little bit longer than you guys. I'm the only one on this panel that's been to the '68 World Series when my dad took me there when the Tigers faced the St. Louis Cardinals. So yes, I see where you're coming from. Hold on, but that's as far as I'm going to go. I don't agree with you, but
yeah, I don't think I'm going to change your mind. I don't think
you're
going
not.
to. But I would like to get your take, and I did, on what it's like to. Now, I'm not taking anything away from 2 or 3 pitchers that do it either. But when you get the 5 or 6 guys that do it, it really is such an achievement, because it's just, there's so many things that can go wrong when you have that many pitchers of that many styles. One guy comes out of the bullpen, doesn't have his stuff that night, and it's ruined.
Well, all right. Well, who in the right mind would see where you're coming from? A no-hitter is a no-hitter, but you're right. I'm not going to change. You're not changing my mind. I really believe in what I believe in, and that's just how it is. I mean, Nolan Ryan threw 1 million of them anyway. So, I mean, and that's for another day, for another time. And you know, it's funny. We talked about complete games. Robin Roberts, by the way, was a head coach at the University of South Florida, by the way. I had to get my plug in from my alma mater. And he coached pitchers over there when they racked up a ton of complete games. But yeah, to answer your question, Lou, do I see where you're coming from? Yeah, I know. Still don't agree with it. There's no way anybody's going to change my mind on this panel. But I like the fact that in this particular case, I'm outnumbered 3-1. It's a beautiful thing when you're outnumbered 3-1, because remember about me being outnumbered 3-1. I'm closer to collecting Social Security than you 3 guys. So now you understand why I'm outnumbered.
How much Social Security do you think you're going to get?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, okay? When I hit, right, wonder about that. But I know I'm eligible for it in about 2.5 years. So, Eric, I'll let the people of Social Security, whatever I can get will be good enough for me. It doesn't make any difference. So, I don't know. Who knows if it'll be there, but I'm ready to collect it in 2.5 years. So, but to say that I see where you're coming from is one thing, but the fact that I'm the oldest one of the 4 of us will indicate that you're right. I'm a little on the stubborn side of being mildly stating the obvious, for sure. But yeah, I still don't think it's legitimate, when it comes to the individual statistic. Team statistic, I understand, because it is a team stat and there were no hits allowed. And you know what? No matter how much I want to balk at it, yes, another nice baseball term, balk, and I will use it here, that in the box score, it's still going to go out as a no-hitter, 0-0-0. Whether I like it or not, it is what it is.
How about here's a compromise? Whichever pitcher gets the win gets the no-hitter.
Well,
so basically the second guy coming in.
Yeah, whichever pitcher, the winning run comes across, normally that pitcher who's on the mound gets the win.
That or if the guy pitches 5 innings, and probably, Lou, where they're going to get it, if he pitches at least 5 innings to be eligible for the decision. But then again, you guys make valid points in that situation. Whoever scores a winning run, again, that situation also. But Lou, I got to give you credit, my friend. I like the fact that you're coming back at me. Will you at least see it a little bit my way? Yeah, I saw it just a little your way.
I noticed that.
But you're not going all the way. I mean, I don't know if there was
not me. You're 100% wrong, Scott. But that's
then you know what? So be it.
This is America.
Beautiful.
I love it. I love we can agree to disagree. I love it.
And you know what? I have no problem with it at all. I love these subjects where I like when people gang up on me. I love it. It's a beautiful thing because those are out there that are watching and listening. You know what? We encourage you to go ahead and take sides in this situation. That's why we come up with these juicy topics for that particular reason.
Let's move on to our next one then, shall we? And this one is one regarding Juan Soto. And it's one that I've talked about on a number of shows, one I wrote an article on, released yesterday at drroto.com. So if you want to get all my information on, all my takes on it, you can go check out that article. I even have a proposed trade in there with 3 top 5 prospects from an organization. But basically, the subject here is Juan Soto is top 3 or 4 player in Major League Baseball right now. He's only 23 years old. possibly only getting better, which is crazy. Problem is he's on a terrible team, surrounded by no talent, which is affecting his play this year, affecting him wanting to be there in the long haul. And although he is just 23 and will be a free agent at 25, the team's not going to be good by the time he is ready to hit free agency. And they're in a very tough division, a division that is not going to be easy for them to necessarily get back towards the top anytime soon. So with all that being said, would Washington want to bring him back? Would they offer him all the money in the world to do it? Sure. Does Soto want to be there? Doesn't seem likely. So what does Washington do? Do they sit by and do they wait till the last year of his deal and get nothing like the Orioles did with Machado? Do they do basically try to do what they got from Mookie Betts in Boston, which is okay, but not great, or what the Guardians got for Lindor from the Mets, which is not great? Or did they capitalize on Soto being 23 years old, having 2 years of eligibility left after this, or team control left after this, and trade him this offseason and get a groundbreaking trade that we've never seen before? Literally 3 or 4 of the top 5 prospects in an organization and major league ready talent. Because every time we see one of these superstars traded, it always seems to be underwhelming. And my thought on that, guys, is that they always wait too long. If you see the writing on the wall, you make the trade now when you can get the most out of it, because you're better off getting 4 or 5 lottery tickets than getting next to nothing. And the Red Sox might have that issue with Xander Bogaerts and so on and so forth. Eric, over to you.
Well, Juan Soto, unfortunately, he's playing on a rebuilding team. I know that this is a guy who, not too long ago, about 2 or 3 years ago, he won the World Series with that team. I think that it's going to be, in order for him to really, for him to have like the opportunity to go somewhere and actually hit, he's got to have hitters around him. And right now he has nothing. He's literally he only as I speak tonight, he only has 14 RBI. That is not Juan Soto like. Last year, the guy was mashing and mashing and mashing to where people are wondering, how can we pitch to this guy? I'm sure it wouldn't shock me if in the future he gets the Barry Bonds treatment with the bases loaded. I just think
Corey Seager got it. So,
well, yeah, Corey Seager, yes, but but Barry Bonds was the one who made it cool.
Yeah, I was more so making a joke that if Corey Seager can get it, then so can Juan Soto.
Oh, if he will. But right now, he literally has no nucleus around him. There is no core to be identified there. And they're counting on Soto to be that guy. I don't think it's in Soto's best interest to stay in Washington. Bryce Harper, even though the Nationals won a World Series, Bryce Harper got out of there because he knew that, he didn't think that
he actually got out before, which is kind of hilarious.
Yes,
yeah, I love it.
He did. And, obviously the Nats won the World Series there, which, you can go ahead and pay homage to the Expos if you want. It's, but the fact of the matter is Bryce ended up being right at the end of the day, knowing that nucleus could not be sustained because a lot of those guys were vets. And it was only going to be a 1-year thing. It wasn't going to be a dynasty. They might have been lucky to make it back to one more playoff game. But the fact of the matter is that team got old. And right now, that team is, it's gearing up for a rebuild. There is, odds are his manager, Dave Martinez, is going to be out of there, probably on his own because he won a World Series. And he'll get picked up by someone. Some team will fire somebody and realize this guy has a World Series ring. He led the Nationals to a series not too long ago, and he'll get a second opportunity. He's also a good manager, spending enough time with Joe Madden. But Soto, I just think that if the Nationals are smart, they could get a boatload of prospects that would shoot their farm system right up there with right up there near the top 10 at first, but then eventually they'll be right there with the Baltimore Orioles and the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah, they're gonna get there because they'll be bad regardless. But again, every year, every 6 months, every 12 months that goes by and he's still under contract in Washington, the price or the return that they get goes down. It's just the way it is. If they trade him this season, and the beautiful part for Washington is if they do it now, they can basically trade him anywhere. If they wait until the final year of his deal, unlikely that teams are going to trade for him unless they believe they can re-sign him.
The Nats are
And there's only 4 or 5 teams that can even remotely come close to being able to re-sign him and extend him. At least if they do it now, teams are thinking, you know what? If we re-sign him, great, we want to, but at least we have this year and then 2 more years of Juan Soto to make it worth it. They have 29 other teams that can trade for him. The final year, they have maybe 3 or 4 that will be able to do it money-wise and prospect-wise. Eric,
obviously, teams have it. I mean, yeah, because odds are Soto's going to want to see free agency. That's what he does. I don't know. I don't. Is he a Boris client?
He's a Boris client.
Okay, because he's a Boris client. All Scott Boris's clients at least get to sniff free agency. It's a proven fact. Yeah. He does this with.
He might not turn down 12 years, $500 million though.
No, he won't. But he won't. But if the price is right, they'll stay with the team. I mean, but if it's not there, Boris's clients odds are will see free agency and they'll capitalize on their market value. Love Boris or hate Scott Boris, the guy's good at his job.
Yeah, he definitely gets the most for his clients.
Yes, he's proven to be the best of the best, and he's obviously him being that way, he's gonna like for instance, we were talking Xander Bogaerts. He's gonna tell Xander Bogaerts it's in your best interest to opt out of this deal with the Red Sox. He's gonna do it. The Red Sox are underperforming and are nowhere near what people were saying they were going to be. Everybody expected them to be an AL East contender. What people forgot is that bullpen was still not tended to, and it's still a mess. People seem to forget. People seem to undermine bullpens. Now bullpens are more important than ever. And the Red Sox, the only thing they might have in there is Garrett Whitling, but they decide to move him to a starter. Now they have nobody in that bullpen. They're trying to make Matt Barnes a closer, but the only thing Matt Barnes is pitching is every time he throws a pitch, the ball is essentially hit to a barn.
Yeah, the Red Sox might be doing to Whitlock what the Yankees did to Jabba Chamberlain.
I mean,
it might be a big mistake.
The Yankees didn't really have the pitching back then. Which Jabba Chamberlain, I thought he could have been a better middle reliever setup man.
He was incredible, and then they tried to make him a starter, and look what happened. And maybe Whitlock will be better and figure it out, but he was an elite reliever, and then moved him to the rotation. Yeah, but
Whitlock is younger too, so there's some time to play around. Mariano Rivera started out as a starter, and then they moved him to the bullpen.
Well, that is much more normal, and that's where you see a lot of guys start as starters and become relievers and become exceptional. It's when you do it the other way around that doesn't always work.
Right. And so, obviously I think that Whitling, I think it's good to at least try. He's young enough where you won't hurt him. Jabba Chamberlain wasn't he had been a reliever already for a while, and, they decided all of a sudden switch things up on him. So, obviously Chamberlain wasn't talented enough to be a starter. So I just think that, because Whitlock's young enough, it's okay. But then and if it doesn't work, you can say, all right, back to the bullpen. You can probably be a good setup and possibly even a closer. Which, to be truthful, I thought Whitlock was talented enough to be a closer.
I thought he should have been the closer. Rick, we got off topic there because we're Yankees guys, Eric and I.
Of course.
Your thoughts on Juan Soto, and when will he be a Yankee?
Never.
I could see the Yankees going all in. It makes sense. They need some upgrades They need some upgrades. They could the Nationals could get Gallo for them.
Dominguez, Peraza, Wells,
I can see him going to the Mets.
Florial.
Mets.
Yeah.
I see the Mets.
He's not going to get traded to the Mets.
The Mets don't need outfielders. The Mets don't need outfielders.
Nationals aren't trading him within that division. Could he go there as a free agent? Sure.
Yeah.
I'm talking about trades.
They will not. It's like Xander Bogaerts, as much as it wants to happen, Xander Bogaerts is not going to the Yankees. There's no way the Red Sox would ever trade him in division. You think Mike Rizzo's a smart guy. You think he wants to see that? You think he wants to see his former player Juan Soto, who's a top 3 talent, nine times a month? You think he really wants that to happen, where his bullpen's going to get mashed single-handedly?
Well, they need to get some players because they need to get rid of him. Soto, he's gone. He's not going to stay there. And, he needs to start hitting better, but they need to trade him as soon as possible. He's not going to stay there. He's young. You think he wants to stay on a team that's rebuilding and for 12 years or 10 years? No way. He's a young kid. And he wants to win another championship. He wants to go somewhere else. You know, the Nationals are a mess. They have no farm system. They need to get a whole bunch of picks. And I agree with you, Lou. The longer they wait, the less they'll get, because that's usually what happens. And 23-year-old guy won a World Series, one of the best players right now. And it just doesn't look like you're going to sign him. Just see who can get him and get all the prospects you can and build up that farm system. And they're going to be rebuilding for 2-3 years, the Nationals. They're just a mess right now. They have to rebuild. They are probably going to get a new manager and start from bottom to the top again. And hopefully, like in the next 3 years, they could be a better team. But they need to trade him as soon as possible.
Well, right now with in regards to the Orioles and Manny Machado, I really can't blame the Orioles for not trading him at the time, because that team really was a playoff team and they thought that they had the best chance. They thought they could really win it all. Because keep in mind though, before that, 2 years prior, that team was in the ALCS, and they weren't that far away from going back to the World Series. So literally, when you're literally right there, it makes it very hard to part with a talented guy like Manny Machado. So I really can't blame Baltimore there. And also,
it does. But the year that they did trade him, they weren't good. They were prior to that. Waiting until the last moment was their mistake. They should have traded him in the offseason prior to, when they'd already lost some pieces.
Right.
They weren't as good. The point of really was that the longer you wait. That's why the Red Sox got a decent return on Mookie Betts, because they didn't trade him in that final season. They traded him in the offseason. So at least the Dodgers knew regardless we were getting a full year of Mookie Betts.
Right. And they also if you wait the last minute, your leverage lowers because you really want to get rid of the guy. I mean, obviously, but the Red Sox have a good front office. Chan Bloom's one of the best, as much as I hate admitting it, because that's a team I just truly despise and just loathe. And so I really think that they did a good thing, because the offseason, they got all the leverage in the world. They can talk back and forth rather than the phone's ringing nonstop. The trade deadline's coming up and here we go.
Yeah, I just think they might be able to maximize it by doing it this year, because there's going to be a team or 2 or 7 or 13 that want Juan Soto this year.
The Cardinals need a shortstop. Paul DeJong they sent
outfielder.
Down. Yeah.
Outfield. Oh, you're talking Bogarts. Yeah. The Cardinals and Bogarts have been linked a lot, actually.
I just don't see Soto going to the Yankees. Hank Steinbrenner ain't like his dad. If his dad was alive, absolutely he'll get him. But Hank, he's a little bit more on the frugal side. We'll put it that way.
He doesn't want to pay
It's Hal, but yeah.
Hal.
Hank passed away, I believe.
Yeah. So
Hal runs the joint there.
Yeah. Let me go ahead and incorporate a little bit here. Number one, I'm with you all the way, Lou, that I think you trade him as soon as possible, get the biggest bang for your buck that you can. A couple of places I would probably think could be in the mix would be the St. Louis Cardinals. Anytime you go to St. Louis and you leave there, you don't want to leave. It's a great baseball town. Another team that I would probably consider might be the LA Angels. I think that they're the type of team in the American League. Didn't they?
The only problem with the Angels for a trade is they don't have the farm system to get it done.
I mean,
they're not going to leverage all that.
So if they don't have the farm system capital to do it, you might be able to find an everyday player or two that's marginal, and then try to come up with pieces in the farm system. Again, I'm just making 2 suggestions here.
Oh, don't rule out the Angels.
Pardon me?
Don't rule out the Angels.
I wouldn't rule.
No.
I wrote.
They're smart.
I wrote about this in regards to Xander Bogaerts and potential locations on Belly Up Sports. I think the Angels are ready for the playoffs. They're clearly there. Their pitching's finally where it needs to be, and they're ready to go. But keep in mind this one dark horse team, and they're desperate. And Scott, Dave Dombrowski runs this team, the Philadelphia Phillies. That team is desperate. They don't necessarily care. They don't really value defense. So that's that's the least of their concerns. But right now, Joe Girardi and Dave Dombrowski's butts are on the hot seat right now.
Right.
When your butt's on the hot seat, you make moves. You make moves that okay. You're
talking Bogarts here, though, right?
Yes.
Because we were talking Soto. So
yeah,
I'm just making sure.
Oh,
Yeah. So
I'm just making sure. No, because
Yeah.
We were
I was
talking
gonna
Bogarts
say-
and Soto and
Yeah. No, I was just making
It's
sure
just
because
Soto.
with Soto, again, not going to trade within the division.
right.
But
Yeah. So let
with
me.
Bogarts, you're absolutely right. And with the Angels, with Bogarts, yes, they have the system to get it done. With Soto, no chance. They
All
don't
right.
have
Well,
the
again,
capital.
I'm giving you a couple suggestions. Take them for whatever they're worth. I'm not going to be as steadfast with these suggestions as I was on no hitter topic.
Mhm.
But when you go to St. Louis, you don't leave. How many times have you seen a
They
guy
have the prospects to get it done. In fact,
They
they just
do.
I
called
think
a couple
they
of
do,
them
yeah.
up. And Gorman and Liberator, Donovan's looked good. Yepes has looked good. I'm sure there's a number of others. So they could possibly get a deal done.
Well, but there's a
They
few
could probably
schools-
offer Tyler O'Neill and Dylan Carlson too, for that matter.
There's a few schools of thought. I really agree with you, Lou. Number one, I don't believe that you do trade within the division because it bites you 12 to 18 times a year, depending on what the scheduling is next year. Item number one. And we're on Soto. I just want to make sure that I'm clear on that. That Soto, to me, going to St. Louis is a possibility. I really do. And you never know if the Angels are going to get involved. I mean, these are just two teams. But going back to your initial point, Lou, if the earlier you trade them, the bigger market that you have. That's the one thing that can't be lost sight of. And I love your reference, Lou, when you talk about the Dodgers and the Red Sox, because you're able to get a bigger value earlier than you would later. Yeah, if you're selling when you're desperate, then the pennies on the dollar go down, and then obviously, to me, it doesn't really work out. So as far as Soto is concerned, I would say St. Louis, the Angels, but you never know. Again, these are just two teams. We have a lot of them. But I guess my point on this whole topic, Lou, is I'm with you all the way. I guess we can call this one unanimous, right, where nobody disagrees. Okay, sell why, trade them while the value is higher, right?
Yep. He's not coming back, and he's young, and you got to get what you can.
He's in his prime.
They don't got anybody. They got to rebuild.
Doesn't want to be part of a rebuild? Trade him, get what you can get as much as possible.
I mean, speaking of that thought, because he's in his prime, it makes me wonder when Don Mattingly was in his prime, it makes me wonder how if he would have been a Yankee his whole career had he been playing in today's game.
Yeah, well, that's hypothetical, I guess. We'll see.
His back problems hurt his career. That's unfortunate.
He was, Soto's in the prime of his career. He deserves to go to a contender. He's always had a taste of World Series champagne, and I think that a contender like, I'm not saying the Yankees will do it, but the Yankees definitely need an upgrade in their outfield.
They also have the prospect capital to get it done.
They do.
Sweeney, Volpe, Dominguez,
they might throw Florial
What
in
they
there.
don't have, like the Cardinals might have, is young MLB talent to trade, unless it's Gleyber Torres. But I don't think he's doing well enough for that to happen. Whereas the Cardinals, with O'Neill and Carlson, good MLB talent already, and then with Gorman just coming up and with Liberator just coming up, that's the type of deal that could transform Washington very quickly.
Right, you get two guys.
What former Angel, rather national, went over to the Angels? I'm drawing a
Rendon.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And because they decided to give Strasburg all the money instead, and all Strasburg's done is throw maybe like 75 innings since.
Okay, well, there you go.
I mean, Rendon has his own injury issues, but regardless of that, keeping things in the NL East here, the topic probably won't be as deep. We don't have to necessarily go as deep into it, but the New York Mets have been the talk of the town. I mean, the Yankees, of course, having a good season of their own, but with all the money that the Mets spend, the 1-2 punch of DeGrom and Scherzer, who, by the way, have not thrown a pitch together in the big leagues yet. Now they're both out. Even with the Mets' sizable lead at this time, it's not even Memorial Day yet. Lots of time left. Braves still the world champions. Braves still a good team. Phillies, despite some of the issues we talked about briefly here that Eric alluded to, still a talented roster. And the Marlins are no slouch either. Without Scherzer and DeGrom, can the Mets hold on to their lead in the NL East until they are both back? Rick, I'll go to you first.
Absolutely not. They need those two guys there. It's just they've been the New York mess for so long, and right now they look like the New York mess. With all the money that Cohen has, and that's great. They got an owner that wants to spend and go out there, and he's probably going to go after Judge at the end of the season. And I do see Judge going to the Mets. Sorry, Lou. And so They need those two guys there, and it's unfortunate not one but two in Scherzer. So they definitely need them. And if they can't pitch it, let's just say they don't come back this season, they're not going to go far. Having Buck Showalter there is great. He's a great manager, but he needs those two workhorses. Those two are arguably the best in the league, and they need them. So losing one is bad. Losing two is even worse. So
Yeah,
no,
they were
they can't
doing
win without
fine
him.
without DeGrom. Not that they don't need DeGrom. Of course they
Yeah.
do. DeGrom's amazing, but they were doing fine without him. They were doing great. Carrasco's been fine, whatever. Scherzer's good, but they also lost McGill, who was the fill-in for DeGrom, who was pitching well. They have a lot of pitching issues in that rotation right now. Bullpen still good, lineup still good, and of course they have the money and the resources to go out there and add more. Should they need to. But definitely tough. And they say 2 months with Scherzer, but who knows? The guy's very old. He's had injury issues for years now. And a setback could easily become 3 months, just a minor setback. So, yeah, I'd be very worried with the investment they have in both DeGrom and Scherzer. Though they have other pieces, they're very top-heavy rotation. And, again, that's a tough division. Can they still get into the postseason? Sure. Could they still win the division? I'm not saying they can't, but to me, it's
Very
still
difficult.
it's still the Atlanta Braves division to lose,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Eric, your thoughts on this Mets mess of a situation?
I mean, what can I say? I could see anytime the Mets have something good, it kind of blows up in their hands. That's it. That's just the standard of the
Still
New
paying
York
for
Mets.
Bobby Bonilla's contract.
Well, yes, that too, and also everything that, especially the '93 with Vince Coleman and that mess. But with the Mets, I think just because the division is not great that they'll still get to the postseason. That's just because their division is not great. I mean, the Phillies on paper, yeah, they're supposed to be more talented, but they're really just not. They're just not doing it right now. I think that I think DeGrom and Scherzer, I think it's really gonna bite them really down the stretch when we start to get to the dog days of July and August, where obviously last year we saw the Mets, they went out and traded for all those guys thinking they would be good for the postseason, and they weren't. They ended up ceding the division to the red hot Atlanta Braves. But I really think though that because they're losing those two guys, two great arms, it's going to hurt. I just don't see them becoming I just don't see the Mets being able to hold up that long. I mean, they're in first place for right now, and they do have some wiggle room, but are they going to can they keep this up for the next few months? No.
Well,
I think it's going to be incredibly tough with their current rotation. Now, could they go out there and make an early splash? Go find somebody on a team that is not going places. I mean, the Cincinnati Reds have Luis Castillo, Tyler Mahle. Both those guys could benefit from a scenery change. So that's just one example right there. Montas is still chilling out there in Oakland. They already got one Oakland A's pitcher with Chris Bassett, who, by the way, is a key for them right now. Bassett and Carrasco. If Carrasco stays healthy, those are still two very good pitchers who were aces on their former teams. That could be the key to their success. But the Mets should probably go out there and add another pitcher.
They're gonna
They've already tried to go all in, so they might as well just continue to push the chips into the middle and not wait around to see what might happen with DeGrom or might happen with Scherzer. If I'm the Mets, I'm assuming I don't see DeGrom or Scherzer until August, even though they should both be back way sooner. That's the assumption I'm under, and I'm loading up as much as I can right now.
Well, we saw the Atlanta Braves get red hot last year, and they just snuck up and just took the division right out of New York's hands last year. They're going to have to make a move for a starter. I mean, there's plenty of starters out there. I know Castillo. We've seen how great Castillo is, and Tyler Mahle just coming off a year last year where he was the ace of that rotation, who did very well in place of Castillo, but. They need some arms. I mean, there's nothing more valuable in baseball than the arm. And right now, the Mets are missing Scherzer as well as DeGrom, two very big arms, easily two of the top pitchers in the National League. They need to make a move. Otherwise, it's gonna be the same old story for me, which is y'all are hyping up the Mets for no apparent reason. And I'm going to be sitting back in there saying, I told you so. As soon as I said in April, watch them fall apart, it happens. Yep.
Yeah, it does. And Nathan Eovaldi might become available if the Red Sox don't continue to rise up. They are playing much better baseball, getting spanked tonight, though. Actually, no, they're spanking the White Sox tonight, I should say. The Red Sox definitely playing better, but Eovaldi could be available. Just looking at that, a team like Cleveland could make a guy like Quantrill or Plesac or even Bieber available at some point. I mentioned Montas, maybe Herman Marquez, who could be a much better outside of Coors Field, could go to the Mets. So there's definitely options for them to go out there and seek. It's just a matter of how long will they wait. And if something does happen to Carrasco or Bassett, they're going to have to act very quickly, because without those two, they're already down Miguel and DeGrom and Scherzer. Taijuan Walker is no sure thing. David Peterson is whatever, I guess. So yeah, the Mets could be in trouble, even if they can hit, and they can hit. So can the Braves and so can the Phillies, and those teams have full rotations that are healthy. Scott, your thoughts here?
All right. Well, first of all, I'm going to go backtrack on what Eric said. Okay. There's no question. I think Philadelphia is underachieving, and that Dave Dombrowski and Joe Girardi are under a big time microscope. You have all that power in your lineup. You better hope and pray they can be a little higher up in the division than they are. So that's item number one. Number two, we all know that the Atlanta Braves a year ago didn't get off to one of the better starts on the planet. They got better as the year went on. They have good pitching staff. So, yeah, there's no doubt in my mind the Braves could be a force to be reckoned with. I'll go back to what I said about the Marlins. If they get any kind of hitting, watch out. This team will be dangerous. We know about their frontline pitching. Now, but the main thing that you're asking here, Lou, can the Mets hold on the NL East without Scherzer and DeGrom? I will say yes, okay, and I'll tell you why. Maybe it's one of my most predictable nights where I'm standing my ground on a lot of topics, but I am all Buck Showalter, okay? If there's anybody that can pull a rabbit out of his bag of tricks, it's Buck Showalter. Now, does that mean that they're going to make a trade at the deadline or try to scan the waiver wire to see who gets loose and straighten them out? They'll get arms. I think they did sign another guy recently. Don't recall who the name is. I don't know if he'll be ready for a few weeks to get back in game shape. But you're talking about a different Mets regime here. And to me, that's the whole thing. Buck Showalter, I'm trying to remember who their general manager is. Doesn't strike me. Geez. But maybe it does. But to me, I trust Buck Showalter that he can maneuver around any situation out there. He's been doing it a long time. Now, am I going to sit here and say it'll be difficult? Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's no doubt about it because of what you have in the division. But, let's face the reality. Steve Cohen will spend the money, and I think they will be aggressive over at the trade deadline. So do I think they can do it? Yeah, I really do. And Buck Showalter is the X factor. He is that good. But he's not a miracle worker and he doesn't throw the ball, but he knows exactly what he's got to do. When you have an old school manager like him who's seen just about everything on the planet, you got to give him the benefit of the doubt.
No, Scott, they're not going to crumble like other Mets teams have, like the Padres did last year, which they won't now with Bob Melvin. That I can get behind. I do believe Buck Showalter is a difference maker. But if they crumble, it won't be because they're crumbling. It'll be because they don't have enough on that roster and enough pitching. They might be able to survive right now, but you come the dog days of summer and your bullpen is worn out because you're not getting the length from your starters because you don't have good starters. Another starter might get hurt, and all of a sudden you're in a lot of trouble. The Yankees were flying high. The Yankees were doing incredibly. All of a sudden, Chapman goes down. Green goes down for the year. The bullpen looks like it's a mess. The starters aren't going deep, and they were relying heavily on that bullpen. Gallo, COVID. Donaldson, COVID. Higashioka, COVID. They've now lost 3 straight for the first time all year, maybe 4 tonight. Injuries happen fast. And when they happen, everything can go down the drain. The Toronto Blue Jays got off to a terrible start because Teoscar Hernandez went down super early. Vladdy, despite not missing any time, had his hand stepped on, I think, in New York and hasn't been the same since. Despite hitting 3 home runs the next day or that game, since then, he hasn't been the same player. These injuries happen, and it changes everything on these teams.
Oh yeah, well, all the more reason why what you're saying is really true. And that's what I love about baseball, guys. Okay, it's 162 games, so you have your peaks and valleys during the course of the season. We're not talking about spring training, and when you get to the postseason where you only have 2 or 3 stars, I hope they can go in there. But remember, they're carrying more pitchers these days than they have in the past. What are they carrying? Like 13, 14 pitchers on the roster. So you have those extra arms. Does that mean that it's any easier? No, because like you said, Lou, okay, injuries are really what it's all about. And again, when you're talking about a marathon and not a sprint, then everything you're saying, Lou, comes into play big time. So again, we know that to me, I guess one of these days, we're going to ask what title is tougher, and the NBA, the NHL, MLB, and we talk about which one.
I used to think it was the NHL because of how many games they have to play in the playoffs.
Right.
But now I think it might be Major League Baseball because so few teams actually get in compared to the other sports, even though they've bumped it up to 12 now. All the other sports. Actually, I guess it's only 14 in the NFL, but in the NFL, you have to win 3 or 4 games in the playoffs, and you get it. Not to say it's easy, but it's easier. And NBA, there's only 4 teams or 5 teams every year that even have a chance.
I know, but you're 100% right about baseball.
162 games.
It's a grind.
It's the hardest game.
It's a grind.
Mentally, plus 162 games. I mean, you already answered your own question anyways, which is why I brought it up under the GMTA theory again, okay?
The travel is
ridiculous.
The toughest
sport. So you have more peaks and valleys, and you're probably going to go through a lot more players during the course of 162 games because things do happen, whether it's injuries or whatever the case may be, which is why. And then when you talk about the feeder systems, why do you think in Major League Baseball you got 3, 4, 5 farm teams when you don't have any in the NFL? And I don't classify the NBA with the G League or anything. And the NHL has maybe 2 or 3 teams. So that all the more reason. You guys are validating my point about what sport is difficult. But yeah, I mean, I never said that it was going to be easy for the Mets. There are a lot of things that have to happen. You have to hope guys get healthier quick. But the thing you have going is Steve Cohen's willing to spend the money. At least and they have the money. We're not dealing with a Bernie Madoff situation where you got swindled here.
Correct, but money doesn't come into play as much when you're trading for players as much as it does when you're signing players. Because it makes a difference in who you can acquire. Because if they have a larger salary and you're willing to take it on, fine. But if you don't have what it takes to trade for those players, or if you do have what it takes, but all the other teams trying to trade for those players have more, it's not going to make a difference how much money you have.
True. Yeah, so, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, I got to tell you one thing tonight, and you know what? I usually like to watch a boxing match between Eric Katz and Lou Landers, but because of some of the subjects that you got there, you got this old guy really thinking a little bit more animated about some of these things. I love it when we come up with these hard-nosed rock'em sock'em conversations. I think they're fantastic no matter who's boxing each other. And tonight, I think we were really spot on with what we were talking about. So, yeah, these are certainly thinking man's or thinking fans' topics for sure. And I think that we were on point and consistent throughout the whole thing. But
I'm with you. I have nothing else on these topics. Eric, you have anything else you want to add?
I mean, baseball's a grind. It's a long season. There's like so much can happen over the course of a season. That's why, that it's just it takes up a big chunk of the year, unlike the other sports. I just think that, with the Mets, obviously Cohen's willing to spend. We know that, and we know that they'll more than likely make the moves because they're in it to win it right now. I just think that it's going to be harder though when you had 2 pitchers who were aces on the staff go down with injuries. So it'll be interesting to see though, because remember the Atlanta Braves started off very slow last year.
Right.
At one point they weren't even in July. At one point they weren't even a factor in the playoffs.
And the Mets have to avoid further injury too. It's not just playing without DeGrom and without Scherzer and playing until they get back. One more injury, like I said, to Carrasco or Bassett, and that rotation starts to look pretty concrete dumpy, if you ask me.
If I want to get Rick Curti's goat tonight, I think I know how to do it.
How's that?
I can't see Juan Soto going to the Astros, the Washington trading to Houston. So
they can bring their trash cans.
Exactly. There we go. That's the Rick I know.
Try to win a World Series without cheating, Astros.
There you go.
We'll see how good you are.
Rick, I was gonna come to you, but that might be your perfect final thoughts. But if you do have any more final thoughts on the topic, here's your chance, brother.
Yeah, I just don't see. I love Buck Showalter. He's one of the best, brightest minds in all of baseball. He's seen every trick, but when he got not just 2 pitchers, but 2 Hall of Fame pitcher and maybe another Hall of Fame pitcher, and the injuries just catch up to you. And I'm sorry, the New York Mets have been a mess for a long time. I mean, they're still paying for Bobby Bonilla's contract and all the money that Steve Cohen has. And I love having Steve Cohen and having Buck Showalter. They're on the rise. But when you lose 2 great pitchers like that, not average, great pitchers like that, it is really tough. And if they could stabilize it and till August, so I think these are going to be long injuries. More kudos to them, but it's going to be really, really tough.
Yeah, and my closing thoughts tonight will be where they started beginning. It was great to see Sandy Alcantara throw that complete game. And when I do get a chance to talk to Don Mattingly at some point, and I get the opportunity, depending on when the media availabilities are, I usually go on Sundays, unfortunately, because I'm having some concussion issues. That's hard for me to drive at night, and they usually don't have them on Sunday. But I know when I talk to Don, the complete game thing will probably come up. Nevertheless, it was still great to see a complete game on Sunday with Sandy Alcantara. I've seen the guy, and I'll tell you one thing, the Marlins have a great piece there. I hope that we see more and more complete games because I think it's still essential to try to give pitching staff and bullpens days off, especially when you know you can do it and you have the thoroughbred or stud there to do it. So I'll close it where we started the show off with Sandy Alcantara. With that said, okay, Eric Katz, I'll let you lead it off here and let everybody know how they can get a hold of you.
You can follow me on my Twitter at Sports Team News, or follow me up or find my stuff on bellyupsports.com where I cover Wisconsin Badgers football.
Very good. And of course, we're hoping that as I make this announcement tonight, the show Fire Up Wisconsin will be debuting in a couple of weeks. Perhaps Eric Katz might get an opportunity to come on depending on his schedule. With that said, Mr. Opinion, okay, you're always spot on. Let everybody know how they get a hold of you. But before you do that, I do want to point out Rick Curti is a very big help for the South Florida Tribune as he does a marvelous job sharing all of our stuff on social media. Go ahead, Rick.
Well, thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. You can contact me on my website at www.charlottebats.com. You can go on there and sign the petition to bring Major League Baseball to Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm also on there on Facebook at Charlotte MLB. I'm on there at Charlotte Bats Baseball. I'm on Instagram at Charlotte Bats. I'm on Twitter, Charlotte Bats Baseball. And I'm also on LinkedIn under Rick Curti, Curti. And we post every day and just let everyone know about how close we are to getting Major League Baseball in Charlotte, North Carolina.
All right, Lou, take it away.
Well, of course, you can find me on this podcast, 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, with these fine gentlemen. I'm the content director of baseball at drroto.com, SiriusXM Fantasy Sports, Sunday mornings, 9:30 a.m. Eastern, and Fridays and some Tuesdays, I'm on Sports Byline USA and the Armed Forces Network.
And last but not least, me. Okay. Anyways, my name is Scott Morgan, Roth Motor City Badmouth. For those of you who are watching it on YouTube, you can see all my information. You can go to www.southfloridatribune.com to find everything from the written content all the way to the broadcast side. If you want to email us with suggestions, I'm sure we gave you a lot to talk about tonight. Feel free to do so at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. And we also want to point out to you, you can find us on Twitter at Tribune South. If you want to hear the shows, you can do so on iHeartRadio, Google, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts. And I also want to point out that it is important. Please subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. You'll be able to see all these shows as well. I enjoy this group. You guys are really the best. And I do also want to point out to Candy Ebling, who does a remarkable job with the website as well as putting up the shows and everything. Without her, our life is a whole lot more difficult, and she will be rewarded for her efforts by going on and being the primary host on Fire Up Wisconsin that I'll be doing. So feel free to go to the South Florida Tribune under the broadcast side. You'll see all the shows that we have out there as well. So meanwhile, like I say, you guys to me are an outstanding crew to work with, and the subjects that we have are designed to stimulate the mind. And I can definitely assure that when we come out here and do this, when we do it, it's a great show, and I hope all of you guys appreciate what we put into it as much as we enjoy doing it ourselves. So, meanwhile, on behalf of Rick Curti, Mr. Opinion, Eric Katz, Mr. Concrete Dump, aka Olympic Stadium, Montreal, and Lou Landers. Okay, this is Scott Morgan, Roth Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Until the next time, good night, everybody, and please share the shows, and we'll continue to aim to make them a whole lot better. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.